Okay, today's video, we're going to talk about something, a feature on Google Ads called Final URL Suffix, which is a feature within the ad editing menu when you edit an ad on Google Ads. Of course, if it's a responsive display ad, of course, if it's a banner ad, if it's a search ad, all of it includes this final URL suffix. And I'm going to tell you how to use it to actually make money. So this is not the nerdy channel, in case you're finding me for the first time here, the nerdy channel that you're going to find, theory and, how to set something up and that's it. No, this is how to make money. And for sure, this does make money if you are going to use it. And ultimately, if you spend money on Google Ads at all, you should use this. Otherwise, you're not getting the full value out of what you're investing into Google Ads. So with that said, I'm going to explain the process for using this final URL suffix that's on all of you guys watching Google accounts to specifically be able to make more money, and how much more money you practically could and should also make using this for your account. This actually all has to do with being able to more easily identify where the big whale customers or clients are coming from in your business. Unless you're selling something under $100 in price, this information is valid for everybody that is watching this video, including you. Given a lot of people, or should I say about 80% plus of the people that come to your site for the first time, when they're first finding you through a Google ad that you're running right now, aren't going to be ready to buy right away. And whether they want to buy a day from now, a month from now, a year from now, it will vary. And a lot of people underestimate how long it takes to get a return on a click on average, given the what they call sales cycle window, or average time that it takes from a person to initially discover you through your ads to the time that they on average purchase from you. Ignoring all the people that come back way later will be ignoring how much money your ads really make, and may just make your ads look like they don't work at all and you shut them off and you don't go on to make millions of dollars with Google Ads. Whereas if you had the final URL suffix set up, you certainly would understand what the true value of your ads are over longer periods of time. So you know what the true value is of not just the people who buy right away, but buy 1 month from now, year from now, 3 years from now. Do they ever come back at all and buy? And the more expensive your product or service that you're trying to sell is, the longer of time on average that they're going to need to that it'll take for them to come back, the average person to come back and buy. So if you're selling something even 4 or 5 digits or even 6 digits, it's going to take on average, 5, 6 plus months for the average person to buy. You would be shocked how long it takes the average customer for you, that you're in terms of what you're paying to get people to recognize your product or service or solution, and then how long it takes for them to come back and actually realize the return from your investment. Getting an ad in front of that individual person and being able to have them click through to discover your product or service, which you're gonna, once you're done with this process, you'll understand how long it takes and what the true investment of your Google ads are, where most of the investment return that you're gonna get is gonna come from people coming back later on, significantly later on, which you need to understand to be able to truly understand what you're making. And then if you know what you're making, you can scale your campaigns to a high level, because once you're profitable, you can scale your campaigns that you're running, and most of the profit you're ever going to make from your campaigns is going to be once you start scaling those babies. Everything is up, initially it's just to figure out how to get to a whatever set level of profitability that you need with the margins that you have, and then it's just scaling to the moon. Most people start out, that I know, as well as the clients we manage, start with an ad budget, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month, get that to work, and they can scale to $50,000, $100,000 a month over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and really, really make millions from ads. And it's just one step at a time. There's not usually one ad that'll get you rich on Google, but you start small, you reinvest into the process, you build it up like everybody else. So anyway, with that said, I will explain the process here, what the fundamentals behind this is, why it works, how it works, and ultimately get to the details on how you're going to make more money from this, okay? So final URL suffix, which is the actual feature slash box that's on the Google Ads editing menu. So like if you go into your ad, any ad in your account, and you go to edit the ad, under the advanced URL options, you'll find that box called your final URL suffix next to the tracking template box. You actually have to drop, currently you have to hit the drop down button to even see it. So it's like not there unless you really are checking for it. But that box is there to help. Google wants to help you make money. Otherwise, or obviously helps them make more money if you know what you're really making from these ads. So it's there to get the information about the users who click and turn into a lead or prospect, so that you can identify if they ever eventually purchase, and then tie that purchase back to the ad that you were running, so you know how to run which ads are specifically worth, overall it can get you a return on your investment, given that like I said, the average person isn't going to buy right away, and they buy usually on average, months down the road for anybody who sells something even over $100. So that box that's what it's for. I've talked about in other videos how you can identify if an ad, turns into a sale. If you generate a lead, how you can actually track a lead all the way to a sale. And when a sale occurs, you can take the sales information that you got, put it back into Google Ads, and then see down to the ad level, the keyword level, and so forth, where that initial user came from, so that you can optimize your ads based upon what's delivering good quality leads, profit, ROI. And that is actually called something, offline conversion tracking is what that's called. And whereas you want to do that as well, that's still something you want to do. It's not a replacement outright for the final URL suffix to do the same thing. Final URL suffix, if you're using that box appropriately, like I'm going to share, will also let you be able to track a lead all the way to a sale itself, but it has nothing to do necessarily with taking the sales information and get it back into Google Ads, so that Google Ads ad algorithm can get you better and better results on an ongoing basis, which is the main reason why you do it, as well as you can optimize the ads based upon that sales level data. It gives you the data itself in a CRM that you're using, or in general, to see how many people are ultimately, if you look at what that person does over the next 3 years, do they buy, do they not buy, and do that for every person you have coming in, whether that, the ad spend you have is profitable, is it getting you the ROI that you need so you can start scaling. The final URL suffix box, will actually do what the offline conversion tracking can't do, which is to track beyond 90 days. Offline conversion tracking, if you follow that process to get sales data back into your ad account when a sale eventually occurs from a lead that you've generated through the campaigns that you're running, will only do up to 90 days. So if somebody on average buys past that 90-day point from the day that they initially clicked to your website, you're not going to be able to see it in your Google Ads account, even if you've got the process set up to pipe back information about who bought and who didn't buy from your CRM or whatever you're using to track your leads all the way to a sale. So, and going back to what I was just saying a minute ago, way more people than you think are coming back many, many months later to finish their purchase. The average amount of time that it's taking for people to make a purchase from the time that they initially start looking into it is getting longer and longer all the time, because people are just understanding that all the information they need to know about something is online, and they could, and they're investing in the process of doing research. They're not just assuming that the information that they don't, that they need to make a good informed decision isn't out there. They know it's out there, so that they search, and when they start searching, they have no intention of buying right away, and because there's so much information, they're using extra time to consume all the information so they can make an even better, more informed purchase decision. So you're going to find that the average person, like even if you sell something for $500, the average person's not coming back for at least 2 to 3 months later on average, for the average person to come back and buy. If you're selling something over 500 bucks, it certainly could be more. And not just a typical, you know, just a general example. Like I said, the more expensive your product or service is, the longer it's going to take for them on average to come back and get your purchase or average, you know, get your return out of your ad spend. If you have the final URL suffix set up on all of your ads, you can track that person for infinitely after. So if they come back and buy 5 years from now, you can see that that ad you ran got a return. It stays with the person for as long as it takes for them to purchase versus the 90 days that offline conversion tracking can only do. So if you guys are, for you watching, if you sell expensive products or services, even if it's over 100 bucks, you should be doing this. But if you're selling anything over 500, this is exceptionally important / profitable for you to set the final URL suffix up so you can see what ad, what keyword, what campaign they came from when the lead's generated. Along with the lead, it'll be that extra information will be included with the lead that you get through your contact forms, so that you can eventually, when they do buy, you can, you know, tie it back. You can see, okay, wow, that ad that we're running, that actually is a great ad. We should do more of that, or what have you. So for you guys selling more expensive products or services, this is key and will make you a ton of money if you just set this up, which once it's set up once, it's done. A little bit of a pain in the ass to get it set up initially, not too bad. Then you'll get certainly an additional twice as much profit long-term from your ads, understanding which half of your account's producing way above average, what half of your account's producing below average, and then reinvesting your money into the part that produces above average results. So in a nutshell, you know, somebody fills out any contact form on your site if you're using final URL suffix in the process I'm about to describe, along with the information about what you have in your form that you're requesting from the user. You know, basically where you're probably asking them for their name, you know, phone number, email address, that kind of stuff, and maybe some other stuff. In addition with that, there's a way to capture what campaign they clicked on, what ad they clicked on, what keyword they typed into Google before they saw and found your ad, so on and so forth, so that when they fill in that form, when you get an email with that form fill content that they typed into the form, it will have all that extra information with it. If you're using a CRM system and your information is going directly into the CRM, you have in other words, you have a direct integration set up from your website to your CRM. So when somebody fills out the form on your contact form, or what have you, or your form on your site, all that information can go into your CRM specifically. So in your CRM, that contact record will have the campaign, the keyword, so on and so forth with it. And it stays with that person for as long as it takes for them to buy. And a lot of times it'll take a year plus for some people to buy. And then that gives you the true return on your campaign ad spend versus what you're going to be able to pick up to 90 days in the future with offline conversion tracking itself, like I was mentioning. So, and by the way, so you can track whether, you know, what the return from a campaign is if you're generating leads by using the final URL suffix, grabbing the details about the user when they turn into a lead, and then keeping a hold of it so that when they eventually buy, you can see what they initially typed in and so forth. You can do the same thing with your phone calls, which if you don't have your call data, for most of you guys, you're not going to have nearly the full picture. If you use a call tracking software, I recommend CallRail. And I know specifically with CallRail you can do this. I don't know about every single call tracking software out there can do this, but with CallRail, it'll track also what the user initially typed in, what campaign they clicked on, and so forth when they call. And it ultimately will capture the details so that if they came to the site and then later came back to the site again and then called, it'll have the details about what ad they initially clicked on when they initially first found you. The same thing can be done with the form fills. So we're not just talking about, going back to what I was saying about how people spend enormous amounts of time doing research before they buy something of any significant cost anymore. If you want to capture the information about what they clicked on when they initially found you, which is most important generally most of the time, you can actually do it with the final URL suffix as well in this specified process that I'm going to describe here in just a second. So that, you know, again, it's important to run ads that are getting out there when people are first starting to do the research, because if you don't, your competitors do that, then you're going to not have a chance at a lot of potential market share you could have got if you were just running your ads when people are starting to do the research. And you can run those ads when people are starting to do the research. So if they're looking for informational type queries, how do I do this? What's the best this or that, versus, buy XYZ or XYZ for sale. You can track whether or not showing up at that specific time, early time, paid off later on into a sale, and to what, obviously you'll get some sales, but is the amount of sales I got going to justify the cost of running those ads way early in the sales process for my market? So for what you can pick up though, as it comes to contact forms in the final URL suffix, you can actually, when somebody fills out the form on your site, any form on your site, you can track the source, medium. Source would be like Google, if you're coming from Google. Medium would be like, saying it was a PPC click, which both of those in and itself are always going to be the same, if you're talking about Google ads. The campaign that they came from, the keyword they typed in, what ad they clicked on, what marketing tactic you use. So is it somebody that has been to your competitor's site that you're having your ad show up for, which you can do through custom intent audiences. Check out my video about that if you want to know how to do that. But if you want to see showing up for anybody who's been to your competitor's site recently, and to try to put an ad out there to get them to your site, how many people eventually turn into a customer? And not only that, but like if you get a customer and you're in a repeat business type of business, how many future sales did you get off that person, so that you can tie what you had to pay to poach that customer from the competitor, and what it cost to initially, advertise to get that person from that competitor, and then compare that to all the eventual sales you made with that person to get the true ROI from your campaign. You can do that with final URL suffix additions to your ads. And of course, the last thing you can also track that's important anyway, you can do more than this, but the GTIN, which if you're going to go ahead and do all this as well, you might as well set up and track the GTIN, which is like a little serial number that Google gives to every ad click. Capturing that with your contact form makes it so that you can do this thing I mentioned before, which is the offline conversion tracking, where when you get a sale, as long as it's within the first 90 days, you can pass that data back to Google by putting it into a spreadsheet basically, and then uploading it to Google, and then Google will then show that data about where the ad, where that purchase came from in terms of the ad level, campaign level, time of the day level, day of the week level, state level, on and on and on and on, so that you can do more of that in the future. So anyway, if you can capture a lot of details about that, what campaign and what got them to your site in the first place, if they came from a Google ad, using final URL suffixes, okay? And with that, before I get into the process to do that, as I mentioned before, you can actually, if you set it up right, track if somebody clicks on an ad. You had an article, let's say that best explains how to buy something from your market. Let's say you put together a buyer's guide. You're running ads on Google for people looking for buyer's guides, or information about how to select somebody in your space, like how to select a good vendor in your space. You have an ad that shows up on Google for how do I pick a good lawnmower, and then you have a lawnmower's buyer guide that shows up on Google. If they click through that ad, get to your site, they look at your buyer's guide, assuming that, of course, with that they have you could have a form submit to get the buyer's guide, but even if you, and get details there about the user right then and there, but even if you didn't have a form to, download or read that buyer's guide, if they just read the buyer's guide and then they say, oh, that was interesting, and then they leave, and then later on you have an ad that shows up for the person again when they're ready to buy, or you just have another remarketing ad that says, we have a discount on our lawnmowers to get them back to the site. Eventually, when they get back to the site and they buy, or ultimately they then turn into a form lead at that point in time, which they didn't fill out the form when they came to your site the first time when they went to read your buyer's guide, you can actually see that they initially got in contact with you and found out about you through the buyer's guide, which is important because once somebody has gotten to your site once and had a good experience, the likelihood that they're going to buy from you is actually 4 times or greater once they've actually initially had an initial impression of you, which is why, by the way, you want to advertise to people as early as you can in your customer's journey, because if you get in with them early, when they do go to buy, you're the primary, option for them at that point in time. But and you don't even have to get them to respond at all. You can just have this process set up so that when they eventually do come back and buy, or when they eventually do turn into a lead, you know exactly where their initial engagement was with you, to know if that ad that's getting to people before they have any intention to talk to a salesperson, it was worth it or not. And the way that you do that is through cookies. You have a cookie dropped in the user's web browser when they initially come to your site, so then when they eventually turn into a lead, fill out the contact form on your site, you can see information about the initial visit and the initial ad that got them to your site initially. So it's cookies that are going to make that possible for you. And if you're going to do this, you're going to absolutely want the cookies to get that initial click data, because the initial click on how they initially found you is most important, just from the standpoint that otherwise what's going to look the most profitable in the ads that you're running is the brand campaigns that you're running, or the campaigns that you're running that are attracting people right before they want to make a purchase. So you say, oh, well, when they looked at my buyer's guide, they didn't turn into a purchase, so fuck them. We'll just advertise when they're ready to, typing in our brand name. And really, you would have never got the brand search to begin with if you never got them early on with the information early on. So, and that's how your average competitor is going to be trying to decide what ads are worth it and other ads that are not worth it. And because they're not going to do this level of analysis on how did they initially find us, what got them initially interested in our brand, and understanding the value of that to them to generate a pipeline of eventual customers that are going to come in and buy from you at some point in time later on down the line. So anyway, with all that said, here's the actual process to set all this up to do what I mentioned that you can do, so that eventually 6 months down the road, a year down the road, you can look at all the leads you got, what ads everybody clicked on that turned into a sale, and potentially go into your ad account and shut off 80% of what you're doing that's now turning into actual business, and just focus on the 20% that generated all the revenue. So the process goes like this. First, you're going to add the UTMs to the final URL suffix box. So what I mean by UTMs, essentially, there's something called a UTM that on the users. So basically, if you click on an ad, if you notice, you just go ahead and do it after this video if you've never done this before. Click on any ad and then look at the URL bar after you've gotten to the website after that ad. And you'll see that it's the website, and then there's this garbly gook after the URL. It'll be like UTM underscore equals email underscore UTM content equals blah 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 blah. And it'll be after a question mark. Because it'll be the URL question mark and then a bunch of like coding stuff. That's what UTMs are essentially. And if you go into and edit your ad, and you fill in the final URL suffix box, what this actually does is when somebody clicks on the ad, it appends this UTM information on the end of the user's URL, so that when they go to fill out a contact form later, whether right away or later on, or when they eventually do fill out a contact form to turn into an actual lead, that information about what got them to initially get to your site will be sent in with the form lead to your email, to your CRM, wherever that lead information goes. So ultimately, to be able to come up with what you actually put in that final URL suffix box, you go and you type in UTM term builder, Google. Google has a UTM builder tool that tells you exactly what to put in that final URL suffix box. Specifically, every final URL suffix box for every ad that you have should technically be different, or most of it should be different, so that when somebody eventually goes to fill out the form, the information about what ad they clicked on is there. It basically is just giving you the identifying information so that when somebody eventually turns into a lead, you're going to be able to tie it back to that same ad. That's basically all it's doing. And so if you use the UTM builder that Google offers, the public for free, it'll tell you based upon the information from that campaign and that ad that you're trying to fill in the final URL suffix details on, how to actually put the information in that box by asking you basic questions, and then you do that for every ad. Once you've done that for every ad, you're going to add a cookie code to Google Tag Manager. So if you're not using Google Tag Manager now, you start using it, there's a way to not have to do the Google Tag Manager and not do a non-technical version of this, which I'll mention next, but it costs money. But if you don't want to spend money ongoing to do this, once this is set up, the more technical way has no cost long-term to you. The no-cost option is you need to be able to have, though, the cookie dropped on the user's browser. Otherwise, when somebody gets to your site, if they come back later and then fill out the form, then the information about what initially got them to the site, you're not going to be able to have that information still pass through the contact form the way that you want. It'll only then, without the cookie code, only pass the information if they actually fill out the form on the first visit. Not only that, with these UTMs, if somebody clicks on your ad, gets to the page you're taking them to, the so-called landing page, if they go and visit 2 or 3 more pages on your site, and then they go to the Contact Us page and then fill out that Contact Us form on the Contact Us page, the UTM information that you had put in your ad final URL suffix from the first step won't be in with your form lead, because it gets stripped out of that URL once you visited more than one page on the site. So the cookie code will make sure that UTM information stays in that user's browser and stores it until they eventually fill out the form, whether that's after visiting 3 more pages, or coming back 3 more times, or coming back 3 more months from now. It's stored on that user's computer on their browser and in their browser data. And so when they fill out the form, it all is dumped through that form at that time. So you need the cookie code to be able to store the information that you want that's from the UTM codes that are in the user's URL bar, so that eventually when they fill out the form, it is included with their form details. Once you've got that, you're going to add hidden form fields to all your forms. So in order to make sure that those UTM codes that you put in your final URL suffix gets passed through to your email address, where your form leads normally go, or to your CRM system where your form leads usually go, you need to add what are called hidden form fields to each one of your contact forms. This is not hard to do. And a hidden form field is basically just like it sounds. You have your form, there's fields for first name, last name, so on and so forth. And then there's hidden form fields that you could put on your form that nobody sees, but will be able to send other information through. And those hidden form fields can be set up to send the information from the final URL suffix that you put in on your final URL suffix box, so that then it gets sent in with the rest of the form details to your email or to your CRM. So that ultimately, if you're getting your leads sent to your email now, the information will say, it'll be like first name, last name, phone number, email, campaign name, keyword, so on and so forth, the way that you would want it. Once you've done that, you're going to, this is an optional step, but the whole point of this exercise is to get information that we can then dissect and do analysis as to see, A, is our investment into Google Ads long-term profitable? And B, what part of our account's driving 80% of the profit, so we can potentially just focus on that? And if our campaign isn't profitable, how much of our account should we cut out so it is profitable? In that, Google Ads should always be profitable. It's just a question of, are you going to have enough data to understand what part's not profitable so that you can parse that part out and then now have a profitable account? Without this level of data and what I'm telling you here, you're not going to be able to do that for yourself after you've spent and invested so much money in your ads. There's no way to get it profitable because you don't have the information to do so. So what I would recommend you do is, with all this, after the 3 steps I just gave you, you do that. If you're getting your emails sent to an email address right now, that's where your form leads are going to, is to an email address. I would set the forms up to send to a second email address. So whatever email address you got your form leads going to now, have the same exact form leads go to a second email address. And the reason why I say that is so that somebody can go and go through that second email address where a copy of the form leads are going, and take the information from that email and all those form leads and put it into a Google sheet for you, so that periodically you can go and do an analysis on the leads, where they came from, and which part of the account is producing most of the business that I'm getting. You can actually have, if you're using more of a common contact form script to run your contact forms, you can have the form information go to Google Sheets through a program like Zapier, which is like a connecting software, and automatically build. So in addition to having your leads go to your email, automatically build you a Google Sheet that has all the same leads on it, and then the campaign that they came from, the keyword they came from, the ad they came from, and so forth, so that eventually, just 90 days from now, after you've set all this up, you can go and go reference this sheet, and right away it'll tell you ultimately all the leads that came in and where they came from. At that point, you can have a employee or whatever go in there and put in another column whether or not those people bought or not, and then another column how much they spent. And then you could have your running total of all the leads you got from Google Ads, how many sales you made, and how much revenue was generated. And from that, obviously, you can go back to Google, set the the date range on the data for the same date range that you have leads in the Google Sheet, and then see your overall return on ad spend from all the leads you generated. How much ad spend, how much revenue was generated per all of the leads. So, and with that, and the final step is just the analysis. I recommend quarterly going in and looking at that data and see if, you should have in mind, I want, a 5-to-1 return on my ad spend, a 10-to-1 return on my ad spend, whatever it is, and then go in and look at all your sales that you got from all your leads on that Google Sheet that you set up, and then compare that to the ad spend that you spent. And if you're getting the 5-to-1 return or 10-to-1 return that you want, start jacking up the ad spend. That's people the mistake what Google Ads is even for, or, for that matter, online advertising. Google Ads isn't about, people think that if they're not getting a return right away with Google Ads, they're not going to do it anymore. You run a small budget with Google Ads and you optimize the shit out of it until you get a return. Because when you get a return, you can start scaling, and whatever you spend to get the initial ad spend to work, you're making that back in 1 month's worth of profit once this thing is scaled up. So literally speaking, yes, you're going to lose a decent amount of money up front to find the winning formula, but you're going to find it with the tracking that I'm mentioning here. It's impossible to not figure it out as long as you got something that sells, which if you got something that sells and your competitors are running their ads, why the hell would it not work? And with you having more data than them, why the hell would it not work? And then it's just a matter of time before you have enough data to know what part of what you ran and what works you consistently have profit from then on. And not only that, you can start scaling up your spend on the part that worked to the maximum amount that Google will let you spend. So, generally speaking, if you get your lead sent to another email, you can give an employee access to that and put that into the Google Sheet or whatever, and have that person update the Google Sheet once a month with all the sales that occurred, indicating if somebody bought from each lead or did they not buy. And then you just have a running tab that you as the owner or manager can go and look at that just shows you overall what's your net profit or gross revenue from all Google leads at any given time. So that's the process that you actually follow to be able to have the capability to be able to see of all the form leads you got, where they're coming from, and then how to narrow down your ads so that you have a guaranteed way to profit from Google Ads ultimately in the long term. Going back to what I said about calls before, by the way, all of this in a lot of cases, in a lot of markets, isn't going to be worth anything unless you also don't do the same kind of long-term analysis on the phone call. So that's why you're going to use CallRail. CallRail, once you have that CallRail set up, it'll tell you the keyword and the campaign and everything that the person initially called from right there in the campaign, in the details next to the call in CallRail for every call that's generated from then on. As long as you have the final URL suffix box set up, CallRail will do a good job picking up all the necessary details that CallRail needs to be able to show you that next to each call. And CallRail will actually show you the details about the campaign they clicked on, the keyword they typed in, and so forth from the first visit. It's not going to be showing you by default what happened, on the last ad they clicked on before they turned into a phone call. It'll tell you all those details about what they did the first time they came to the site, because it's all automatically cookie based as well. So if somebody comes to your site, don't call. They come back to your site a month from now, call. It'll tell you the campaign and keyword and so forth that they used and typed in when they initially came to the site, not the day that they called. And they can do that with their system. So ultimately, it shows you the timeline of that person's entire history on your site. So it'll show you they came to the site 3 times, and then on the 4th time they called. What they typed in initially before they got to your site the first time was this, and this is the campaign they came from, and so forth. So you can add the call rail data to your sheet that you're going to compile, which has all your form lead details on it, to give you a complete picture about how much revenue you're generating from all the leads that you're generating from your site. And so, like I said before, you guys, even if you're doing e-commerce, if you're selling something over $100, you want to be able to also track, generally speaking, assuming that you take phone orders as well, or offline orders, you want to do all this same stuff as well, because ultimately it's going to give you the full picture of what your true return is. Otherwise, if you're just looking at the cart orders, you're not getting the full picture. Why? You may say, well, it's just a few orders, who gives a shit? The people that are going to spend the most with you, like the business-to-business sales you get, the people that are, want to be distributors, all that, they're going to come in as leads first. They're not just going to go through the cart right away. So if you don't have the extra details about who bought that come in through the form and then buy, through the phone using their credit card, you're going to lose the data that tells you the part of the account that brings in the whale customers. So if it's my business, I'm going to be looking and doing the same thing for an e-commerce business if I take any offline orders at all, and I'm not just sending everybody back to the cart to check out through the cart. So that's something else to consider. Now, as a final note here, you can do cookie-based tracking, as I mentioned before, so that the information about where they came from persists with the user until they fill out the form, using a cookie code that you can put on your site that integrates Google Tag Manager. But if you don't want to do any fancy programming or hire a programmer or whatever, you actually technically can use a out-of-the-box software that'll help you do the same exact thing. And with that, it's the software that I would recommend is called Attributor.io. It's a $50 a month software. But what it'll do is once you drop one code on the site, like CallRail, and it'll tell you every single form lead that's typed in and all the details about that person's ad click with the form details within the software without any advanced programming. So you may not want to do this, setup with Google Tag Manager that I described, but that $50 a month is going to add up a lot over the next 5 to 10 years if you plan on taking this seriously. The whole point of Google Ads to make it work right is to be able to get to where you can scale the campaign, and it's what you make in year 5 covers everything, what you make in 1 year in year 5 covers everything that you took to get the campaign initially off the ground and profitable initially. And that's how you justify losing money up front, like I was talking about. So if you're going to be doing this for the next 5 to 10 years to really see the value out of what you're doing, that's an additional 5-10 grand that you're going to spend over the next 5-10 years for that software to get you out of having to hire a programmer to set this up. But it's obviously your call, and it's up to you which one what solution or what process itself that you go through to do this. So in general, this final URL suffix box is going to give you all the info you need to be able to see how profitable your campaign is if you're generating leads, or if you do e-commerce and you take some orders from customers offline and not through the cart itself by itself. And regardless of how long it takes for them to initially come back. For you guys, by the way, doing business-to-business sales, if you're not looking at and not doing this to see what your leads are truly worth, you're not going to see the value in what you're doing, because so many of your prospects that are turning into a lead aren't going to come back for years later. You've got to be able to do long-term analysis on your leads, because people don't make decisions quickly in those in business to business sales, ultimately, with that, you know, the people that are able to get a good value from their leads, get a lot of revenue or profit per lead, if you will, they're able to do a lot of follow-up with leads. They follow up a lot of times to get them to initially talk to them if they filled out a form. And then once you talk to them, they do a lot of follow-up, and so you follow up on that lead till they eventually buy. And it just takes a long time, and that's the difference between people that make a lot or a little from the same exact leads, whether or not you're going to have a good follow-up game. And practically speaking, you should never give up on a lead in business to business sales specifically, but I would even say in business to consumer sales, you follow up with the lead until they tell you to fuck off or that they're going to buy. That's it. They contacted you. They owe you that much because they told you that they wanted to do business with you. And the least they could do is tell you they're not interested if they're not interested. So if it's buy or die. If you do that versus somebody who follows up a couple times and then that's it, you'll make 3 times as many sales as the person who contacts them a couple times only. And so with that, knowing that a good half of the sales that you're ever going to get, or even more, are going to come from following up and then never giving up on that lead and then eventually getting the business, not having this awareness about the leads that are eventually going to come in and buy, your campaign's never going to look like it makes sense on paper for you. So, and you'll be fooled into not doing it, basically. So anyway, that's the whole thing in a nutshell, what final URL suffix are. Decorating your URLs pertains to adding information to your customer's URL so that and tracking information so that ultimately when they fill out a contact form on your site, that tracking information can be pulled from the URL and sent in with the lead's details. That's how you're going to be able to make money. And basically how much is on the line essentially is an infinite amount on the line, because what this specifically does is it'll a lot of times tell you that your campaigns are working versus not working. But at the very least, if it's not working very well, like I said, you're going to know what parts of your campaign to shut off so that it does start working. So you're talking about potentially millions of dollars is on the line, just having the capability to know how to get the return that you're looking for and what parts of what you're doing is going to deliver that return. So that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I have a lot of videos on this channel about other money-making strategies, specifically having to do with PPC. If you want to learn how to make money with PPC and have the best information available on YouTube, this is the channel that you want to subscribe to for it. I manage about 4 dozen PPC campaigns at any given time, and I'm the one doing the strategy on all of them. We have a team here that helps us get the results for the client, but I also specifically do the strategy on all the accounts. So I know exactly what's working, what's not working as it comes to Google ads, Facebook ads, and so forth, because we're testing stuff all the time. A lot of these people that run channels don't actually manage a lot of accounts, or they run the firm, they're not in the weeds. I got the information about what's working. So with that, and I give you the actual information about how to make money, I don't give you just the theory itself. This is the practical advice on how to make money like we're making it for our clients. With that said, we got to guarantee results for our clients, and I'm telling you exactly what we're doing to do it for our clients. You can, by the way, also find a blog written by myself at guaranteeppc.com/blog, where I give you similar advice on how to build campaigns that goes more into detail. So if you like the channel, you can also go there and read that information for myself as well. But if you would give the video a like, I would appreciate it, and consider subscribing. You're going to have a lot of great other information you're going to find from me that gives you the latest and greatest strategies that work with PPC for your business. If you have any questions about anything I covered, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel, usually within a couple days' time. And with that said, I have a last thing I will mention here before I wrap this video up, which is we have a brand new program at our PPC firm where we're offering turnkey PPC campaigns. In that, if you're in a market where we have already operated in, instead of hiring us for PPC management or hire another firm, if you just want the campaign templates that are working for that market, that we've developed for that market, you can actually buy the campaign templates for that market that we've built up over time for a client in that same market, as long as there's no conflict of interest between you and a client we have or a client we've had in the past. And what that looks like is we'll, if you're in the plumbing market, if we've worked in plumbing before, spent years building up a campaign for that market that crushes it. If you want to get a campaign going in your market, another geographic market, you could just literally buy the templates of all the ads, landing pages, and everything that work for that market. We would tell you what the results were up front that you can get from that campaign in that market, and then just copy paste it into your account, get the same results. You could also start a business up doing anything. Really, we have dozens of campaign templates that you could use. We've had people that use one of our campaign templates, outsource all the work to somebody, mark the prices up 10 or 20%, and had a mostly just passive income business. So if you're looking to just try to start something new, that's another opportunity for you. But at the very least, you should check out and see if we have worked in your market. And even if you don't want to work with a full, on PPC management firm, you could potentially just hurdle over all the work that you have to do to find out exactly what works in that market by using our template. So anyway, with that said, I'll wrap it up with that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on my next video where we have another great strategy for you there to make some more money. See you there.